I'm going to call it a fantasy, but it's not really a fantasy, right? This deeply held common desire to want to write a book that's so good that it lands you on Oprah. And I have, like when I say this is super common, it's not to downplay, yeah, you and everybody else, right? It's not to downplay that because a lot of us have very high goals. We have very lofty goals. We see where we want to go. We see the kind of impact we want to have. We see who can help us create that kind of impact. And we feel so strongly in our messaging, in our mission, that like whoever can get the word out to a mass audience is someplace that we want to place ourselves. Okay, so Oprah's like the person. Everybody knows Oprah, and everybody loves Oprah. So I wanted to break apart this idea that you want to be on Oprah. And is it realistic? Are you a contender? I like to think of that as, are you a contender to be on Oprah? So I want to walk you through the research. I want to walk you through the whole thought process of, could you be somebody on Oprah? Could you write a book that would land you on Oprah?
I'm a huge fan of researching, right? Who shows up on Super Soul Sunday sitting across from Oprah? Because really, we want to know what kind of guests are sitting in the chair opposite her. So here's the author, Carolyn Myss, another author, Michael Singer, right? And another author of Simple Abundance, Sarah Ban Bretnock. So I'm looking at, who is she interviewing? Thich Nhat Hanh has his several books. We have Brian Stevens. This is a civil rights attorney. No, he's not talking about a book. We have Eckhart Tolle sitting across from her, Dr. Brian Weiss, and a past life regression expert. So I'm gathering these names because I'm going to check out the next step of my process. Of course, Maya Angelou. And then we've got Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Manifest Tiny Little Miracles. Dr. Wayne Dyer, he's dead, but yeah. Okay, here's my second level research. I know nothing about Carolyn Myss, right? She's sitting across from Oprah. And Carolyn Myss has a couple of books, but I'm assuming that Oprah is talking to Carolyn about this particular book. It came out in 2020. So let me show you what I look for. First thing I look for is who published this. So this is a Hay House publication, and it is categorized as prayer, mental and spiritual healing, spiritual self-help. So yeah, Oprah likes mental and spiritual healing and self-help. I want to come back to Amazon for a minute, and I want to talk about Dr. Wayne Dyer. If Dr. Wayne Dyer, all of his books, or most of his books, I believe, are published by Hay House. And his books are under self-esteem, happiness and self-help, success and self-help. But this guy went around and around and around and sold his books all across the United States out of the trunk of his car. I mean, he was working every single angle. And what happened is he sold so many books that he caught the attention of a traditional publishing house, and they bought his intellectual property. So I bring up Wayne Dyer because, do you need to write a book proposal? Do you need to have a traditional publishing house to have a book that lands you in front of Oprah? In short, the answer is no and yes. You can put a book out in the world, but that book better be damn good, and you better be able to sell that book. And it would, if it ends up in the line of a traditional publishing house and they want to buy it from you, your intellectual property, that's how you would skip the whole book proposal process. That's how you'd skip all of that. But the book has to be good, and you have to know how to sell it and promote it. I went and checked to see what was Wayne Dyer's first book. It was Your Erroneous Zones. And this is the book that he had self-published and went took all over the United States. And who bought his intellectual property? So William Morrow Paperbacks, that big traditional publishing house. I don't know who purchased this, but it was a big one back in the next layer of research, right? This is Mickey Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, who, I love that book. It could have been published independently or a whole bunch of things, but it was actually New Harbinger Publications, Noetic Books. So I'm going over here. This is New Harbinger Publications, and they've got a whole bunch of spiritual books, and they've got a great mission. They deal with spirituality. They deal with a lot of mental health professionals and whatnot. So they are a lesser known traditional publishing house. So the question becomes, all right, well, how do you get a publishing deal with New Harbinger, right? New Harbinger, who knows how to pronounce that? So we go over here, publishing with New Harbinger. How do you do it? What do you have to do? And it comes down to this, how to submit your proposal. It's not how to submit your book. It's how to submit your book proposal. And your book proposal is different than your book. So long story short, 99% of the authors that are sitting across from Oprah Winfrey have a traditionally published book, and it starts with a book proposal.
Let's come back to Brene Brown. So Brene Brown, where did Oprah see Brene Brown? Brene Brown's an academic. She's a social scientist. And she did years and years and years of research. She wrote a book. I think she wrote a book before she went on the TEDx stage. So she wrote a book and she began speaking about her book. She began refining her message. And then her message so resonated with people that she landed on the TED stage. And that mass coverage, those huge numbers of views, caught a lot of people's attention, including somebody within Oprah Winfrey's organization. And that's what got Brene Brown on that stage and started getting a bunch of book deals. And I might have the timeline off, but for sure, Oprah did not catch sight of that woman until the TED Talk, until that went viral. And so that went viral because her messaging was so clear, her stories were so good, and I can guarantee you that she got that good at telling stories and on her messaging by writing that book. And when she started that book, right, the end product was amazing. I'm telling you, when she started that book, when she sat down to type, it looked so bad. It was a bunch of research material, thrown together on the page and a few stories. And it took any number of drafts to get that to be where it is. So it comes down to this point. There's a whole process involved in writing a good book. Yeah, it helps to know the publishing game. It helps to know how this all works after you finish your book, right? But you got to know the publishing. I mean, you got to know the process of writing a book. When you sit down to write, it's bad. Everything that you write is bad. And if you don't understand what's involved, like how it gets good, all you're going to do is see what's bad on the page with Oprah will never want this. And I'm saying fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the process because while you're writing bad stuff, you get so good at telling your stories. And identifying which ones resonate with people. You get so good at clarifying your message. You're going to get so good at creating those sound bites, but that doesn't come after one draft and out the door, right? It's a process, and fall in love with the process, because it could land you on Oprah.